All right, so we got another video here for you all today. And so in this video, I'm giving you all my top 10, inspirations that replace the original. So basically all of these fragrances that I have here, these fragrances allow me to not, have to go out and spend hundreds more dollars on the original fragrances. I feel like I'm getting pretty much the exact same experience with these fragrances for a much cheaper price. All right, so the first one on the list, this one is going to be from French Avenue, and this is French Avenue's Veneno. So Veneno, this is their take on By Killian Smoking Hot. I really feel like this is definitely the best interpretation of Smoking Hot. Obviously you have like Lattafa's Mashrabiyah. That one is also pretty nice as well. To me, it's a little bit heavier on that kind of like apple shisha smoke. This to me is a little bit more heavier on kind of like the booziness and the spices. This overall it smells really amazing. It's not really that far off at all from the original By Killian. I believe this was like at least like probably 95% close or so to the original. And I prefer some of the slight differences that this has. So this is going to have a little bit less of that licorice note that you get from the original By Killian in the like initial opening. That's going to be a little bit less prominent in Veneno. And I do like that actually from this fragrance. But I mean, overall, you are still getting the same kind of boozy, spicy, apple shisha smoke, type of smell that you get from the original Smoking Hot. You are still getting that here, and it smells of very good quality as well, man. So this is definitely, to me, like a really good, nighttime scent, or like a scent that you would wear on a date. Definitely, I think the best times to probably wear this would kind of be like the winter and fall. But to be honest with you, I don't think I would mind wearing this even in the summertime at night out here in Vegas. It would definitely be, a little bit more of a thicker fragrance to wear, during that time of the year. But I think, this really goes well with the night, man. So again, definitely check out Veneno from French Avenue. All right, next one on the list, man. This fragrance I was really surprised by, basically because of the house that this comes from. And I know typically with this house, they kind of more so do, I would say, more sort of twist on fragrances. But, sometimes they really do actually do, actual sort of like, you could say clones that really smell like almost exactly like the original. So this one is Paris Corner's Farah, and this is their take on Initio Side Effect. This is easily the best side effect, interpretation that I've smelled. Now, there are going to be some very slight differences between this and Side Effect. I would say the main differences come like in the dry down with the tobacco. The tobacco is definitely, more prominent, than what it is in Farah. To me, Farah is a lot more kind of like balanced out. So, even in the dry down, you're getting tobacco with this fragrance, but you're not getting any more tobacco than you are spices. You're not getting any more tobacco than you are booziness. So it's a very kind of, I would say it's pretty linear. So it's a little bit more linear than what, Side Effect is from Initio, but it's very rich smelling. It's very high quality smelling, and it's very balanced. And I actually, like I said, I do kind of prefer this interpretation over the original Initio for that reason. I do like the tobacco, that kind of comes out in Side Effect, especially in the dry down. But I feel like the way that they've done it in this fragrance, where they've balanced it, with the spices and the booziness, to me, it just comes across as smelling like the more sort of smoother, I would say richer smelling fragrance for sure. So I prefer this one over the original Initio Side Effect. And also, I do prefer this over the French Avenue After Effect as well, man. This is really, really good stuff. So I would definitely say, man, definitely check out Farah from Paris Corner if you're looking for, the best sort of initial side effect interpretation. Next one on the list, this one is one of the most hyped fragrances, I want to say, of last year, pretty much. This one is from French Avenue, and this is Liquid Brun. So this is their take on Parfums de Marly's Altair. So close to Altair that, at least for me, I don't see any reason to, go out and spend extra money on Altair, especially considering the fact that a lot of the websites that used to have, Parfums de Marly fragrances like really heavily discounted, they really don't anymore, except for like certain times of the year. Like I want to say Mother's Day might have been the last time that I think that I saw like, decent Parfums de Marly, discounts. Also, I would say really the only site that I know of that really has like true Parfums de Marly discounted fragrances is, a site like Aura Fragrance. Typically their Parfums de Marly 4.2 ounce bottles, they're typically under $200. Whereas with a lot of these other websites, it's typically over $200, even with the so-called discount. So with that being said, I would say that this is like, over 95% close pretty much, in my opinion, to Altair for a much lower price. I'm not sure exactly what this is going for right now, but I believe it shouldn't be going for any more than about $40 to $50 or so for this 100 ml bottle. And like I said, it's at least about 95% close, pretty much 95% or more to, the original fragrance. There's a slight, little difference in the initial opening of the two fragrances. I want to say, I think this one was a little bit more sort of spicier than what the original Parfums de Marly was. But overall, I really, really think that, if you're a fan of Altair, it makes a little bit more sense to just purchase this fragrance over Altair because of how, close that it comes to the original fragrance. And also, it performs pretty good as well. So I easily get over 8 hours whenever I wear this fragrance, which is really good, for like a $40 to $50 fragrance. So if you're into, that sort of, fresh vanilla, orange blossom, type of scent, that's basically the vibe that you get from this. It's kind of like, whipped vanilla with orange blossom and bergamot, and some other florals. That's basically the vibe that you get with this. If that's up your alley, then I would definitely recommend checking out Liquid Brun from French Avenue. All right, so the next one on the list, this one is another one from French Avenue, and this is one of the aromatics collaborations, and this one is Xandal. So Xandal, this is supposedly, it's not necessarily like a clone of another fragrance, but I can definitely say that this is heavily inspired by Lorenzo Pizzaglia, I believe is the name of the house, Vampirum. This smells very, very similar to Vampirum. Now, there are definitely some differences. I believe the closest rating that I gave this to Vampirum was like around 75 to 80% or so. And to me, the differences, at least as far as what I like, were actually, positive differences. So in this fragrance, this is basically, it's like a overdose of vanilla. There's like, I don't know how many different, types of vanilla notes in this fragrance. There's a vanilla note in, at least the base, the mid, as well as the top notes. So you're getting a lot of vanilla with this one. You're getting a lot of patchouli with this fragrance as well. So if you're not someone who likes patchouli, this is not going to be the fragrance for you, because it does have a considerable amount of patchouli in it. Now, in terms of like the differences between this and Vampirum Vampirum definitely opens up with a much more prominent and more realistic rum note for sure. That's the one part of Vampirum that I wish that they would have, maybe more so kind of went after in this fragrance. I really, really love, like opening boozy rum notes in fragrances. So, this is definitely not as boozy as what Vampirum is to start. But, as the fragrance starts to dry down, or as, this and Vampirum starts to dry down, I start not to like Vampirum as much. It definitely, the patchouli in that fragrance is, I could say definitely more sort of prominent and more sort of dirty and realistic smelling. Whereas in this, it comes across not as prominent, a little bit more kind of on the sweeter side, and not as sort of dirty as what it does in Vampirum anyway. So I do like the fact that this does kind of lean into, sort of like the more sweeter aspect of the scent profile overall. So this is definitely going to be, a more sort of sweeter, thicker, take on the scent profile. Whereas Vampirum, that to me, it comes across as a little bit more like thinner. I guess it's really the best way for me to kind of describe the difference is that fragrance smells just overall thinner than what this does. All right. And, again, I really do like that from Xandal. So this one, again, while it's not supposed to be considered like a clone of the Vampirum, like I said, if you smell these two fragrances side by side, you can definitely tell that, this is heavily inspired by that fragrance. And, again, I definitely do prefer this over the original Vampirum. All right. So again, check out Xandal from French Avenue. Next one on the list, this one is another one from French Avenue, and this is French Avenue's Luscious. So Luscious, this is their take on Kayali's Yum Pistachio Gelato. And, like I've mentioned in previous videos before, this was definitely the fragrance that I preferred over the Kayali. Just the way that this is done overall, in my opinion, this just smells like the more higher quality smelling fragrance. The pistachio in this smells, more realistic than what it does in the Kayali. And overall, to me, this smells a little bit more unisex than what the Kayali does. To me, the Kayali definitely, it smells a little bit more sort of feminine leaning. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is the most masculine smelling fragrance because it's definitely not. I think most men would probably still kind of consider this like a feminine leaning type of scent. But overall, I did enjoy wearing this one a lot, man. It's a very different type of fragrance that, I'm used to wearing. And again, I do really like this one. I'm not typically one to go after like nutty scents, and this is very, very nutty. Like I said, the pistachio in this is very prominent. It's very realistic, smells very high quality. And then, you do have some sweeter kind of, notes in the background. Like you do get a lot of vanilla with this. It does kind of have like a slightly sort of marshmallowy type of feel to it as well. So, if that's not your thing, then, you probably won't like this fragrance. But overall, I do think that this is the better scent over the Kayali Yum Pistachio Gelato, man. This also performs way better. I easily get like 8 hours plus with this fragrance, whereas with the Kayali, I was only getting like, I think maybe at most about 5 hours or so. So this is definitely the better buy. The Kayali is also much more expensive than this is. This typically is like around $50, $50 to $60. The Kayali 400 ml is what I think like $140 or something like that. And to me, it's just not worth, the almost 3 times, the price that it goes for over the Luscious. So definitely, man, if you're looking for a really solid, Yum Pistachio Gelato interpretation, I would definitely recommend checking out Luscious from French Avenue. All right, next one on the list. This one is from Maison des Parfums, and this one goes by Maison d'Arabie Marine Blue. So this is like the cream of the crop, like the top tier of fragrance world. Basically, this is even above French Avenue, and this is their interpretation of Louis Vuitton's City of Stars. This is like at least probably, I don't know, like 98% close pretty much to City of Stars. I mean, it's very, very close. Like if I were like in the market, you know, looking for like a bottle of City of Stars from Louis Vuitton, and I was thinking about spending, you know, either the 345 for the 100 ml or the 485 for the 200, this would definitely make me think twice about doing that. And I wouldn't even say it would make me think twice. It would make me not want to go out and spend that extra money on City of Stars, because this comes that close to that fragrance that I could definitely say that this would replace the original for me anyway, you know, if I were looking for a bottle of City of Stars. Now, to me, the City of Stars scent profile, you know, it is a very kind of like uplifting, you know, citrusy, floral type of scent. But at the same time, to me, it's a slightly kind of feminine leaning type of scent. I do think it's still a unisex scent, but I do think it does kind of lean slightly to the feminine side, with, you know, kind of how powdery it sort of comes across with the tiara flower. But I do really love the opening of this fragrance though. It opens up with like really kind of like sour tangy fruits. So you get like lime with this one, you get like some blood orange. It comes across very kind of like, you know, bright, but yet at the same time kind of slightly sort of sour and tangy. And then, you know, it's met with, you know, a lot of florals for sure. It's a very, very floral type of scent. I would say not as floral as something like Louis Vuitton's California Dream, but it is kind of up there, I would say, with that fragrance slightly. So this fragrance to me, I mean, I feel like it's definitely something that's bright enough that could be worn in the daytime, but I don't know, at least to my brain anyway, when I smell this, it smells like the type of fragrance that I would wear on like a warm summer night. Like I really feel like this would be best worn like on a really hot summer night, especially out here in Vegas when, you know, the temperature is still 100 plus degrees even at night. I think this would smell amazing during, you know, that time of the year, during that time of the day. Obviously, you know, you can wear whatever you want whenever you want to wear it, but I think that would really be the best time to wear this. I think it would also kind of be a decent springtime scent, but again, at least for me, I think this would really shine when it's warm outside, but yet when it's dark outside. All right, so definitely, man, check this one out. Like I said, this is like 98% close. The longevity on it is also pretty good as well, at least 8+ hours. And, you know, the prices on these have come down for sure. When they initially came out, these fragrances were like around, I think, $90 or something like that. And that was one of the main reasons why I didn't pick them up. But now I was able to pick this fragrance up for, I believe it was like $59.99 from the Oud store. But if you can find this on Joma Shop, I think it typically goes for like about $49.99 on Joma Shop. All right. So again, man, check out Maison d'Arabie Marine Blue. All right, so the next one on the list, this one is, unfortunately, it's one of these fragrances from Fragrance World that I don't know if they've like stopped production on it or what's going on, because you can't seem to really find this fragrance. But this was, I would say, one of my, I would say, best pickups from Fragrance World, just period. And this is Fragrance World's Posh Sirius. So this is their interpretation of Parfums de Marly Sedley. And this is like Sedley on steroids, man. When I smelled this side by side with Sedley, I was like, I was shocked at how much better this was compared to Sedley. And I mean, really, most of the reason why this fragrance is so much better than Sedley is it just performs way better than Sedley does. Sedley really does not project that well, and it has pretty terrible longevity as well. But at the same time, it's an amazing smelling scent. Like, it smells like it smells kind of like a Sprite, basically. You kind of get like that citrusy sort of minty opening, definitely mixed with like some lavender as well. So it does also kind of come across sort of like fougere like for sure. But this is like, I mean, the way that this fragrance is done, it definitely projects at least like 2 to 3 times, more than what Sedley does. And also too, this is slightly more amped up when it comes to, I believe it's the mint and the lavender, I think. Both of those seem to be amped up a little bit more in this fragrance than what they are in Sedley. And I welcome that, man. I don't know if they're coming out with like another version of the Sedley scent profile in like the Equestrian series, maybe, later on, or maybe in a different series from like French Avenue that'll have slightly higher quality juice. But I mean, at least what I got from this fragrance, this did not smell like the lower quality, it didn't smell like lower quality juice compared to the Parfums de Marly. Like I said, the only real difference that I got from this was a lot more stronger. It lasted longer, and it was just, it had a better wearing experience, in my opinion. All right. So if you're into the Sedley scent profile and you can find this for a decent price, I would say anywhere from probably about 40 to at maximum like maybe $65 or so, I would absolutely go for this one. And as long as if this comes back readily, being readily available, this would easily be, my choice over Sedley for sure. All right. So again, check out Posh Sirius from Fragrance World. All right. So another one from French Avenue here, and this is actually another Parfums de Marly interpretation, and this is French Avenue's Pierce. So this is their take on Perseus from Parfums de Marly. And, at least for me, this is, I would say, close enough to where this fragrance, I don't need to go out and buy, the original Parfums de Marly. This was at least like 90 to 95% close pretty much to Perseus. And I mean, for like the $60 that this goes for, I think that that's absolutely worth it. This also, to me, it projects and lasts a little bit longer than what the Perseus does from Parfums de Marly. So the performance on this is slightly better. To me, the quality is like neck and neck with Perseus. I think with Perseus, the citruses in that fragrance come across like just ever so slightly a little bit more sort of sweeter and, slightly juicier. But I mean, I'm talking like less than 5%. Like, I mean, this is extremely close to that fragrance for just, again, a fraction of the cost. So like I said, I would easily give this one, like a 90 to 95% close, rating to that fragrance. And, at least for me, Perseus it's not necessarily a scent that I would like, go and buy like a full bottle of, especially not at like the $300+ mark that a lot of Parfums de Marly fragrances go for. So at $50, or $60, I believe is what I paid for this, I'm much more willing to, pay that for a full bottle of this, and, still enjoy the scent. It's a very fresh, but yet at the same time, very kind of woody style scent. So, it smells kind of like how the color, looks on this, you kind of get like this really orange citrus, from the fragrance. But then in the background, the entire time, you're getting like this very prominent sort of woody smell from the fragrance as well. And I feel like at no time does it ever become too woody, at least for me anyway. I think, it's part of what, kind of keeps this fragrance smelling like a very sort of masculine, fresh, smelling scent is the woods in this fragrance for sure. So if you're looking for a really solid interpretation of Perseus, absolutely, I would say check out Pierce from French Avenue. All right, next one on the list. This one is another one from Fragrance World, and this is their take on MFK's Grand Soir, and this is Soir from Fragrance World. So, obviously they've had their interpretation of, MFK's Grand Soir with the, what is it, Bearcat Ambre Eve or Amber Eve, however you pronounce it. That was a okay, or I wouldn't even say okay. I would say it was still a pretty solid interpretation of Grand Soir. The only issue with that fragrance is, especially when you smell it side by side with Soir, is definitely the more smoother fragrance for sure, especially in the opening. With this fragrance, you don't get any sort of alcohol blast with this, whereas with the Amber Eve, that fragrance, you do get a slight alcohol blast with that. Doesn't last that long at all, maybe for like the first probably 15 to 20 seconds or so. But with this one, you don't get that at all. And you get like a really sweet fizzy amber with this fragrance, with a slightly kind of resinous background. And, there are going to still be some slight differences, between this and Grand Soir. I feel like Grand Soir, it holds on to the fizzy sort of ambery opening that you get a little bit longer than what this does. This does kind of go into the sort of thicker, resinous, vanillic sort of feel of the fragrance a little earlier than what, Grand Soir does, but it still does it better, in my opinion, than what the Amber Eve does. All right. Now this is also very cheap as well. So I believe Amber Eve, like on sites that still have that particular fragrance, normally you can kind of find that one for like right around $20. Whereas I believe Soir on like Fragrance Buy, you can find this for like $25 or $27 or something like that. So, it's slightly more expensive, but in my opinion, it's the much more higher quality scent, and it's closer to, the MFK Grand Soir than what the Amber Eve is. So yeah, man, I would definitely recommend this one for sure. I think that this is a really, really good interpretation of Grand Soir, at least about 95% or so close to it. And, smells of really, really high quality, man, especially for how low of a price that this goes for. So again, man, check out Soir from Fragrance World. All right, and then the last one on the list, this is one that I'm sure probably a lot of you all have probably not heard of. I had never heard of this brand or this fragrance in general until I saw somebody post about it on Facebook, and they were saying how close this was to the original fragrance. And this one is from a house called Dyros, and this is Dyros Athar or Athar, however you pronounce it. This is basically, it's their interpretation of Bulgari's Tiger. And this is definitely the closest, or one of the closest interpretations of Tiger that I've smelled so far. I think I would have to smell this side by side with like Black Panther to, really see like if there are any differences between this and Black Panther. But smelling this side by side to Tiger, I can definitely say that this was at least like 97% close pretty much to Tiger. I mean, in the initial opening, I think I got maybe just a little bit more grapefruit from the Dyros. Um, and I mean, after that, the only other difference really that I think that I really picked up on was this seemed to be the better projecting scent than what Tiger was. Tiger definitely does project pretty decently, but this seemed to project even better on my skin than what Tiger did. And to be honest with you, I was kind of thinking here lately about possibly going out and, spending that money on Tiger. But I would say definitely with this fragrance, I don't think there's any reason for me to spend. I want to say Tiger is over $400, I think. I don't think there's any reason for me to spend over $400 on a bottle of Tiger when I have something like this that I paid $50 for. Now, I did buy this from a place that I typically would not, necessarily look for fragrances at. And so the only place that I've been able to find this fragrance at here in the United States anyway is on Shein. So, I mean, I was able to get this fragrance. It did come, and obviously it is pretty legit. Like I said, it smells almost identical to Tiger. That's not necessarily a place that I would typically recommend that you all purchase fragrances from. But at the same time, this, like I said, it came and it so far has been very, very good. So I believe I paid about $50 for this. This is a 100 ml bottle, and I would say this is absolutely worth the $50 that I paid for this. This is definitely better, in my opinion, than what ViCL is from Fragrance World. So, again, man, definitely check out Dyros Athar. All right, and that is the list, man. That is my top 10 list of inspirations that replaced the original. Definitely let me know in the comments what you all thought about this list. Also, I'll have links in the description to where you can actually purchase these fragrances. And if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And again, that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see you on the next video.